So you got a knife. You love your knife. But now your knife cuts like a spoon. Guess it's time to get something new. Hardly. Knives are meant to last. And on this episode of What Knife Should I Buy, we're gonna talk about proper knife maintenance. We'll look at some different sharpening systems, as well as go over what you need to do to keep that knife you love in peak condition. So let's head inside and check out some steel. All right, welcome everybody. We are back here with Tyson, how you doing? And Mike.
Howdy.
They're gonna be talking with us today about knife maintenance. Now, I know that I wanna get the most out of my blade, and I wanna extend the overall life of my knife. So what kind of upkeep should I be doing?
Well, first and foremost, you want to maintain a sharp blade. You want to touch it up often to avoid having to do an intense resharpening down the line once it's completely dull.
Okay.
Also, you want to make sure that your knife is clean and dry to prevent any rust or corrosion from occurring, and then oil any moving parts and secure any pocket clips or things like that.
All right. Now, I know that there's quite a few different sharpening methods, and it could be a little intimidating for somebody that's just getting into it. So what are some of the different categories that you could look at when considering your sharpening system?
You got freehand, guided, and powered systems. Freehand, for that matter, uses stones, flat stones. It can be difficult to master, but it's a rewarding process.
And guided methods have some type of guiding tool that keeps a consistent sharpening angle during the process.
And then lastly, you've got your powered systems like the Work Sharp. Quick and convenient way to maintain an edge. It's basically like a miniature belt sander that you can use freehanded or guided.
All right, so freehand, guided, or powered, which one should I get?
Well, before you go out and buy your next sharpening system, it's good to understand some of the basic principles of sharpening. Regardless of which system you pick, you're always going to move from the coarsest to the most fine grit. Stage 1 would be for heavy sharpening with the most coarse grit, if the blade is extremely dull, damaged, or nicked. Stage 2 with a medium grit for dull edges or quick touch-ups. Stage 3, fine grit for touching up and finishing an edge. And Stage 4 for ultra fine with honing and polishing.
Remember, depending on how dull your knife is, you may not need to go through all the levels of grit when sharpening. It's always easier to maintain an edge than it is to completely regrind or reprofile a completely dull edge. Oftentimes, a quick pass on a strop or with a fine stone will help bring your edge back to where it needs to be.
Another thing to consider when sharpening is angle is king. Here's a graph of some commonly used angles for sharpening different styles of knives. Whatever you want the finished angle to be, you need to sharpen each angle at half that value. So for example, 15% on each side will give you a 30-degree edge.
Now if you don't have a tool or an accurate way to find your angle, you can take a piece of paper and fold it like so, get your 45-degree angle, and once again, 22.5-degree angle, and lastly, 11.25-degree angle. And you can use this in coordination with your stone to find out roughly what edge you want to be at when you're sharpening.
Also, while you're sharpening, you can use a felt tip marker and mark the edge of the blade so you can see the progress while you're sharpening.
And it's important to remember you don't need to press hard when sharpening. What's most critical is that you maintain the angle that you're holding the knife at, and you want to be sure that you can feel a burr on each side of the blade as you progress so you can be sure you're fully apexing the edge of the blade.
All right, so now that we know what we're trying to accomplish when sharpening a knife, what are some of the pros and cons with each of the different systems?
Gotcha. Well, first we'll start with freehand sharpening. With freehand sharpening, you're just using your knife in your hand and your eye to gauge the bevel as you're using your sharpening stone. It can be something as simple as this traditional Arkansas stone, or something that's easily compact and portable, like this newer diamond side and ceramic pocket stone. It's convenient and easy as this field sharpening, or a leather strop. Each one of these tools can be used with a variety of different applications, whether you're using a water-based, oil-based, or dry compound. We suggest that you check the manufacturer's listing on what you should use when you're using each one of these. Some pros to consider when using freehand sharpening is it can be pretty rewarding when you're sharpening it by hand. It's very versatile. It accommodates a large variety of knives and sharpening. Some cons, though, is can be more lengthy and requires more practice, and sometimes the stones can tend to be brittle.
Now, guided systems help take some of the guesswork out of maintaining your correct angle. For example, the Sharpmaker here isn't a true guided system, but the stones are preset in slotted, so they maintain the correct angle while you're sharpening your knife, and you just make even passes down as you go to sharpen your blade. Otherwise, we got this Lansky here, which will hold your blade in this clamp here, and then you can set your angle with this guide rod here as you sharpen the blade. Lastly, on the higher end here, we've got the Edge Pro, and this uses the same sort of idea with a mounted stone, and your knife would go here, and you would make your passes this way as it maintains the correct edge for you. Some of the pros with guided systems is they take away the human element when sharpening, reducing mistakes. They help you keep that consistent angle. They can give you a very, very good edge. Some of the cons of the guided systems is that they can be more difficult to set up. They may not accommodate all sizes and shapes of blades like your freehand stones will, and they are typically higher in price.
And lastly, we'll talk about powered systems, which are small automatic grinders or belt sanders like this Can Onion Work Sharp. Some of the pros of these type of models is you can use with either the included manufacturer guides or freehand. They accommodate a wide variety of different blades, and they make quick work of sharpening. Some of the things to consider is they're typically more expensive than the other versions, and they also include a higher risk of damage to either your knife or bodily injury if used improperly.
Okay. All right, so now that we've considered sharpening, what do we need to look at as far as cleaning and other maintenance?
To maintain your knife, you can, maintain your blade, you can rub the blade down, with a damp oiled rag or something similar, like something like this Aegis EDCI formula, or, perhaps some frog lube. This will help to prevent rust and corrosion. You'll also want to clean out the interior here, keep it free of lint and debris. You can do that with compressed air or a Q-tip, something of that nature. If you really need to get in there and clean it, you can disassemble your knife, but a word of warning, disassembly does void a lot of manufacturer warranties, so you definitely want to make sure you understand their terms and conditions before you disassemble your blade.
Okay. You also want to consider lubricating any moving parts with a high quality lubricant like a dry lubricant like Tough Glide, and you'll apply it to any moving areas like your pivots. And once you've applied just a couple drops on it, you're just going to work that into the mechanism. Yeah, you also want to consider using a Torx bit and tightening any pocket or body screws to prevent them from working themselves out with use.
And remember, guys, sharpening systems all have their specific use. They may not be great for all blades. They all have their pros and cons, and your knife may require special care. So just make sure you do your research and pick the right one for you.
Okay. And you probably want to practice with an old blade to start out with rather than that new EDC you got. But if you're looking for some recommendations on some great sharpening systems, see what we have here. All right, so Tyson, what do you like to use? What's your sharpening system?
I like my Sharpmaker for quick touch-ups, but I joined the bandwagon with the Wicked Edge. Finally took the plunge, and I love it. It removes the human element. I don't have a very steady hand anyway, so it works for me.
I have a Sharpmaker and the Lansky, and so between those two of those, I can do pretty much anything that needs to be sharp in my kitchen.
All right. Yeah, I think the Spyderco Sharpmaker is a fantastic entry-level sharpening system. So
probably one of the better all-around sharpening systems.